I'm Ben Silverio.
I'm Warwick Johnson.
And I'm Ansel Burch, your host in post.
And it's
time to party!
Today's episode about Terminator 2 was recorded on January 7th, 2023. We are not doctors. We don't give medical advice. Please drink responsibly.
What comes next after that bit in the score?
That's it. That's all I got.
That's the whole score?
The whole score. No, it does the like... There's like a strings part, I think, you know. Yeah, but there's like a haunting instrumental part in the middle, I think, is the best way that I have to phrase that.
I don't know why, but I thought of the Game of Thrones theme at that moment.
Yeah, it's not too dissimilar.
Party people, welcome back for the seminal sci-fi classic T2 Judgment Day.
The birth of Finn Balor. Oh, it's not that. Yeah, it's not that Judgment Day.
Different. I think Edge is in it.
What's
though,
that? I'm getting a note in my ear. Oh, it's not the one with Rhea Ripley. Okay, it's a different Judgment Day.
I mean, if James Cameron knows what's good for him, he'll put Rhea Ripley in the next Terminator.
My edutainment is the WWE faction Judgment Day. A brief history.
A brief history.
Because they've only been around for like 6 months.
Pretty much. I mean, even before that, when it was Edge, like that wasn't even that long ago.
Edge. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, but now Dominic Mysterio's been in prison, and that changes a man.
So, Ben, what movie are we edutaining today?
Right. Yes, as usual with our third episode of the month, we like to give back to you, our glorious listeners, by providing you with some edutainment. Just imagine that I'm doing the hand symbol for whatever you think that sounds like, you know? Edutainment.
Edutainment.
Okay. Why you gotta speak with air quotes, huh? Our edutainment episode is where we take an extremely shallow dive into some topic that was inspired by the movie that we watched. We like to call it our lazy river of information because, you know, we're not diving in the deep end. We're not wading into the shallow end.
No, we're just sitting in an air pool, drinking beers and peeing in the water of history.
And sometimes going on way longer than we probably should.
Just like a lazy river.
Just like a lazy river. So if you don't know about Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the James Cameron classic. That's what you say, right? James Cameron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. James Cameron onion rings.
Ooh, onion rings. You gotta stop talking about food before I've had dinner, because that's not great. But our good friends at Rotten Tomatoes give us this information. In this sequel, set 11 years after The Terminator, young John Connor, played by Edward Furlong, the key to civilization's victory over a future robot uprising, is the target of the shape-shifting T-1000, Robert Patrick, a Terminator sent from the future to kill him. Another Terminator, the revamped T-800, Arnold Schwarzenegger, has been sent back to protect the boy, as John and his mother, Linda Hamilton, go on the run with the T-800. The boy forms an unexpected bond with the robot. Yes. If you'd like to hear our thoughts about the movie, you can go ahead and listen to the second episode. If you'd like to drink and smoke and whatever along while you're watching the movie, you can go back to our first episode. And if you want to hear us talk about the original Terminator movie, you can go back to our very first episode ever, which was
January of 2020. Oh boy! Oh, that's gonna be rough to go back.
Yeah, don't you remember, Warwick? You were there.
Yeah, I was there for the Terminator. Now, when I remember when we did Terminator 1, We had a spirited discussion about the role of machines in the future. Wait, I don't know what that voice was. That was my Warwick didn't do Terminator 1 episode voice.
Spoiler alert. Aaron Klein and I were the ones who talked about it.
But she's not here, so I get all the credit.
There it is.
Yes, we had a very fun discussion about Terminator 2 in last week's episode, so definitely go back and listen to that. But first, absolutely, watch the movie, play some drinking games along with it, and honestly, even if you just watch it again. It's great. It's on HBO Max. You don't even have to go out of your way to watch it. So you should for sure do it.
An interesting fact, Terminator 2 Judgment Day is the only Terminator movie on HBO Max right now.
Yes, which is weird.
None of the other ones are.
They don't have that washed dog turd of Terminator Genesis on there, so don't worry.
If you need your Jai Courtney fix, you have to go to the Suicide Squad.
Or Suicide Squad.
Yeah, but who wants to go to that one?
No one.
At all. No one. Remember when I rewatched it recently and it's still shit?
And I left in the middle of it because I was like, I don't want to watch the rest of this movie. I just went to bed. Yes.
It's bad.
It's bad. You know it's not bad, though? Terminator 2, Judgment Day 2, Tokyo Drift
2. So Warwick, for your edutainment section, were there any other options that you might have gone with?
There were two other things that I was thinking about. I had thought about pump action shotguns, but that is something that was covered in the edutainment episode of Terminator 1. So please go back and listen to that one. So I thought about that. And the other thing that I had thought about was mercury specifically, because it was a liquid metal, which is what the Terminator is based on. So I'd thought about that and the applications of mercury, and then I decided I don't want to do that, and so I didn't choose those.
I found it difficult to pick an edutainment topic for this movie because it's like, if it's not a machine of some kind, it's far beyond my comprehension level. But also the pace at which the movie is going is keeping you so focused on what the Connors and the T-800 are doing. It's hard to.
It is an edge of your ass thrill ride that just does not let up, for sure.
It's true. Because what are you gonna do? I thought for a second about pool tables. I had considered shotguns, and then I remembered that I did shotguns already. Yep. I was just gonna replay the audio from that.
You've got the canal from Los Angeles that you can talk about that.
I almost picked the Terminator 3D ride.
Yep.
Not ride, but attraction.
There's the history of Belize. I guess you could talk about that. It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. But I also thought about doing video game cabinets.
Arcades.
But, exactly. I went a different route, though. What I ended up going with is such a minuscule part of the movie. It's such a stretch. So, if you recall, when we meet the Dysons in their home... Miles's son is playing with a remote control car.
That is true.
You see the car for a second, it goes off the stairs, and then all of a sudden Linda Hamilton's trying to kill the whole family. So it doesn't spend a lot of time on screen, but the remote control car definitely leaves an impact on you, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I've decided to go into for my edutainment topic this month. But hey, fun fact. Did you know that remote control airplanes and boats existed before remote control cars? Right? From my very limited research, I learned that the remote control planes were around like as early as the late 1800s, when they were filled with hydrogen, and they were used as like acts or like filler parts of performances in music halls. And I was just like, oh, interesting. The planes were first. And then remote control boats came into popularity in 1898. So just...
Okay.
It was interesting that I found an exact year for the boats as opposed to the planes. But I have an exact date for the cars as well. But first, we have been, I don't want to say coming down hard on America, because, you know, we live here. We appreciate most of it, right?
It does deserve it sometimes, but yes, it's got quirks.
Yeah, and here's a quirk.
It's got
in the early 1950s, the Wenmac toy company produced a cast aluminum, gas engine powered Indy tether car called the Wenmac Automite. But by the time the November 19th, 1965 issue of Life magazine came out, the Ford Motor Company advertised an exclusive. You know, both of you, that I am a toy collector. An exclusive is a great thing. So Life magazine was promoting an exclusive Ford Motor Company conversion kit for this Wenmac Automite, priced at $4.95. It changed the gas-powered engine to an electric one. And it also had a remote control throttle that could be ordered. But notice that I said remote control and not radio control, because even though they were kind of advertising this as like a remote control toy, it wasn't, because it was attached to a tether on a pole, you know. So leave it to America to get your hopes up and then dash them right away, because in reality the first remote control cars became available in Europe in 1966. The first remote control car was nitro powered, and it was created by the Italian electronics company called Elettronica Giocattoli. I probably murdered that. Yeah, right. So this fuel that powered these cars, they call it nitro, but it was a special blend of nitrogen, methanol, and lubricant. The first cars to be made into remote control cars were Ferraris and Porsches. Ferraris and Lamborghinis. They were the first remote control cars.
That makes sense. That's fun.
And it wasn't until the 70s that these nitro-powered cars were more widely produced as electric cars. That evolution was thanks to a Japanese company called Tamiya. And their first electric on-road remote control cars, because off-road didn't come into play until later. Their first on-road RC cars were modeled after a Porsche. The Porsche 934 in 1976. And they were at a 1/12 scale of life size. So I mentioned off-road cars, and the golden era of remote control cars came about in the 1970s, like late 1970s, 1979 until the early 1980s. At that time, the off-road electric cars had become the preferred RC car. I made note of this because the names are super fun. The Tamiya company released the Frog, the Hornet, and the Grasshopper as the regular cars. And the monster truck models were the Blackfoot and the Clodbuster.
Awesome. Right
before the off-road vehicles became where it was at. In 1979, the world's first 1/18th scale on-road gas championship, meaning like the first event to crown the best remote control on-road racer, was held in Geneva, where Phil Booth won the world championship. And I made note of that because I initially read that as Phil Brooks. And if CM Punk is racing RC cars now after his wrestling career is done, that would be funny. From what I understand, there were various model kits that you could like upgrade, and if I took in the information correctly, I'm guessing that they use those kits to like upgrade their cars from the factory models. But you know, even if they're just racing these cars as is out of the box, that's still kind of fun that they had to go all the way to Geneva for a world championship. Another interesting fact that I found was this is so dumb. I cannot believe I wrote this down as a thing, but so the batteries that power electric remote control cars, do you want to guess what they tested these metals on to make them work properly? Frog muscles.
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
literally,
no.
Of all the things to test this shit on, frogs? In one of the articles that I was reading, this fun fact comes up by itself with no elaboration. It just says the battery was developed by testing metals on frog muscles.
Fun fact.
Fun fact.
Oh man.
So back in the day, you know, it was more about, it seemed like it was more about having fun with these things, because now remote control cars are all about like performance and, you know, speed and things like that. So as usual, things get you know, someone decides to take the fun out of it.
Inevitably.
Probably inevitably someone decided to get too serious about it.
Yep, that's true.
It's like that guy who suddenly decided that Frisbee needed to be taken up a notch.
Yep, gotta ramp that right up.
But yeah, there's a little bit of information about remote control cars for you.
Nice. So my edutainment topic is going to be about the Manhattan Project, which created the atomic bomb. The atomic bomb plays a big part in Judgment Day. Skynet nukes most of the planet, and so I think they wipe out most of humanity as part of that. And we get some very cool nuclear explosions and a nuclear attack, or a military official said that it was the most realistic nuclear explosion in any film about Terminator 2. So the effects of the bomb, I guess, was what Stan Winston watched hours and hours of nuclear test footage to try and mimic it. So it must have been very realistic. Now, of course, Oppenheimer by Christopher Nolan is coming out, and I think it has the largest explosion in a film. So that is going to be very interesting to see. So they made a gigantic explosion for that movie. So we'll be very curious to see if that passes Terminator 2. But speaking of Oppenheimer, he was a part of the Manhattan Project, which was the project that created the atomic bombs. And this started, there were some scientists that were defectors from Germany that were refugees. They fled Germany before the Nazis took power. And they had approached American officials and other American scientists, and they said, this is a very real thing that can happen. They are working on creating a nuclear fission device that they can use as a weapon. And so then the idea was that, okay, well, if anyone's going to create this, America should do it first. That way we're not, at the mercy of this. Behind it. And so they set this up. They arranged a conference between Enrico Fermi of the Fermi Lab and the Navy Department in March of 1939. And then that summer, Einstein was persuaded by his fellow scientists to use his influence to present the military potential for the uncontrolled fission chain reaction to FDR. So in 1940, $6,000 was made available to start research under the supervision of the committee.
6,000?
I know. $6,000 was made available. And most of that $6,000 was used to purchase graphite because graphite is used, for anyone who watched Chernobyl, to contain the radiation. And so that's primarily what they used. So that was the original experiments were the research for it. They invested $6,000 into it. But after the U.S. entry into World War II, the War Department was given joint responsibility for the project. So by mid-1942, they had started churning it out to all these different kind of plants across America. There were a bunch of different places that were working on it. In June of 42, the Engineering Corps of Manhattan District was assigned management of the construction work building the facility, which is where it gets the name the Manhattan Project. Much of the early research was performed at Columbia University in New York. So that's why it became the code name for that. So then a little bit of time goes by, and they had worked on specifically uranium-235 was what they were going to look at for the bomb. That's what they used to create fission. But it cannot be separated from its natural companion, the much more abundant uranium-238, by chemical means. So that was the problem that they were working on. So they developed an electromagnetic process at the University of California, Berkeley. And then here in Chicago, at the University of Chicago, they developed at a metallurgical laboratory that they developed the other method for the production of fissionable material of plutonium-239, which was the other radioactive isotope that they used for the atomic bombs. So that was in December of 42, Fermi successfully succeeded in producing and controlling a fission chain reaction here in Chicago. So that's a nice little connection to our hometown here.
So it's your fault.
So it's our fault. Really, it's all of our faults. And then the aforementioned J. Robert Oppenheimer, was stationed at Los Alamos, and that was where they created the vehicle, the actual bomb itself that would detonate and create this explosion. So there were a lot of nuclear tests that were done out there in New Mexico. So there are still parts of the New Mexican desert that are irradiated to this day, which is very fun for people that live out there. And in fact, at one of the first successful tests, I think, there's the very famous quote where after it, they said, The quote was, he quoted from the Bhagavad Gita, where he was like, "I am become death, destroyer of worlds." And people are like, "Oh, that's such like a badass line." And it's just like, no, he was struggling with the weight of creating something that would kill so many people. Oppenheimer, I think, is a really kind of tragic figure in that way. The same as the guy who created the Gatling gun. The man who created the Gatling gun killed himself because he had created it because his thought was, oh, you don't need as many people in war because one person can shoot this many bullets. So that's fewer people out there. Not realizing that it just meant that you could kill a lot more people, and that, and so the
sweet summer child, the
realization of his device to help save lives in war was just going to kill a lot more people. I think Oppenheimer kind of falls into that same category. Oppenheimer is a very kind of tragic figure because of that as well. Yeah, I am too. Everyone in Hollywood is in it, but
except for the people that are in the Barbie movie.
Right. There's the Jets and Sharks of Hollywood right now is Oppenheimer and Barbie.
Simu Liu is in the Barbie movie, so I have to side with Barbie.
That's true. I am excited about him in that. So the last thing is the first atomic bomb explosion was July 16th, 1945. I didn't realize that this was that late, because again, the bombings at Hiroshima and Nagasaki were in the early fall of 1945. So they had successfully tested it, and then the following month they produced the 2 atomic bombs that were dropped in Japan. And many people credit that with ending the war, with actually probably saving some lives, because the thought is that a protracted invasion of Japan would have cost millions of lives on both sides. But I don't know. I think atomic weapons are so interesting in that sense because it was such a devastating thing. And the reason why Tokyo wasn't chosen as a bombing site is because one of the generals in charge had his honeymoon there and was like, I can't blow up Tokyo because my wife will never forgive me because he's attached to it. Yeah. Isn't that, that is one of those just weird things about history. And so they chose, I think Nagasaki was always going to be on the list because it was a major production hub for the Japanese war machine. So I think that they chose Hiroshima then was like the third on the list. And so they just moved down from there. But yeah, so that is the horrible history of the atomic weapon. And I hope that there is never an atomic bomb that's used on anyone. Particularly not if it starts Judgment Day when the machines take over. Never again, machines. Yep. There's a lot of really, I think the history from, particularly there's so many things in World War II, like the V-2 rockets that eventually allowed us to go to space. There's so many things like that, these big leaps that came out of this horrible time with so much death. The atomic age, the advancements in, energy production, there was a time before 3 Mile Island where the thought was that we'd have all these nuclear reactors. We wouldn't be so reliant on fossil fuels. And of course that didn't happen, but that was the thought then. You see it a lot in any 50s look into the future, is the idea that everything was going to be atomic powered, that atomic energy was the way of the future. That would be amazing. I think there were already some huge advancements made, but even before last year. So yeah, in the past year, I think we've seen a lot of positive progression towards an actual fusion reactor.
I was going to reference Spider-Man Miles Morales because energy, sustainable energy is a big part of that game's plot. But then I'm like, no, that's not real history. That's not what we're talking about right now. New form is not a real thing. But I guess that's a good note to go out on, right? I hope you party people enjoyed our month-long look at Terminator 2 Judgment Day. We certainly enjoyed talking about it. Hopefully you could tell by these glorious episodes that we've given to your podcatcher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
had a lot of fun.
Terminator 2 is a great film, and I always think that it's more fun to rag on bad films. However, it is good to be able to just be like, this is a really good time travel film that has strict rules of time travel that it follows for the most part. And I think that makes it... I think Cameron pays a lot of attention to that stuff, and it makes it work well. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know.
Special thanks to April Moralba for our podcast art and to Marlon Longett of Marlon and the Shakes for our amazing theme song. This has been an Indecisionist production. Head on over to indecisionist.com/time2party. That's time, the number 2 party, for more episodes, show notes, and transcripts for season 3.
Yeah, so you can find us on the internet. I'm at bsilverio20 on Instagram, Twitter, and Hive.
I'm at Warwick_Johnson on Twitter.
I am at Indecisionist on Twitter and at The Indecisionist on Instagram.
If you'd like to join in the conversation, you can use the hashtag time2party. That is time, the number 2 party.
Or you can find us on Tout at time, the number 2 party. So be sure to tout us as much as you can. You can Vine us at time2party. That's party, like the drink tea.
You can find our Asian Avenue profile.
Follow me on OnlyFans. No, not yet.
All right, party people, while you're trying to figure out your dating profile and what app to use, we'd like to remind you to be excellent to each other.
And party on, dudes.
Hasta la vista.